Hey guys, it's Madison. Today I'm going to be doing a Joe Goldberg read-a-thon. First I'm going to read Hidden Bodies, and then I'm going to read the new book in this series, You Love Me. I'm a huge fan of the first book in the series, You. In fact, I've already done a review on this book, and I'm going to leave a link to that video in the description box below so you can check it out if you're interested. But yeah, I heard mixed reviews about Hidden Bodies, so I kind of put off reading it because I was afraid that if I read it, it might, and I didn't like it as much, it might diminish my enjoyment of the first book. I've kind of been putting off reading it, but I really want to read You Love Me, and I'm afraid that I won't understand what's going on or appreciate it as much if I don't read Hidden Bodies first. So I'm going to go ahead and read Hidden Bodies and You Love Me, and I'll let you guys know what I think. Okay, I just have to read this part to you. I go into Delilah's bathroom, a carbon copy of my own bathroom. I take a I don't flush. An hour later, she texts me. I love that my bathroom still smells like you. Like, what the heck? Oh my gosh. Like, I know that Joe usually only kills people that are, like, morally bad, but Joe, you need to put this girl out of her misery. So I'm on page 110, and like I finally hit the first thing in this book to kind of annoy me, and that's the fact that there's a character named Paco who's not the same Paco that's in the show. And this is, I mean, technically the show came second, so this should be something that annoys me about the show and not the book, but either way, it just kind of bugs me whenever there's an adaptation of a work and they take a character's name and they make it a different character. I don't know why they do that. It just makes it confusing to the people that decide to read the book. Like, why would you do that? There's no reason. Yeah, I don't know. It was just kind of annoying. So a couple pages later, Joe is making fun of this casting call because it's in second person, and I thought that that was really funny because the whole first book is in second person. So I'm about 200 pages into this book, about halfway, and I'm so relieved and happy. Joe, he's been on this mission to track down Amy, and he's finally giving up that mission, and I'm just like, yes, finally. Like, it's just so pointless. Like, what she's done is already done. Let it go, move on with your life. You found somebody else that, you know, loves you and things are looking good for you. Quit holding on to the past. I get that that's like the theme of the story, but still, it's just such a relief that Joe's like finally moving on from that and finding something better. And I know he's gonna screw it up, but I'm really happy for him. I found another really good reference to the first book, page 214. And this is how summer love crumples, how it deflates like a helium balloon in the hospital. I love that line. It's clearly a reference to the whole Peach and Beck situation where he attacked Peach and she ended up in the hospital, and then he brought a smiley face helium balloon, and then Peach and Beck made a big deal about how that was so insensitive for him to do that. So I like that there's like a subtle nod to the first book. So I'm on page 236, and Joe just killed someone that really didn't deserve it. I don't know how I feel about this, because in the show, he's like, I mean, granted, like, there are some characters that arguably deserve it and some that really don't, like Beck, but this is like a really innocent character compared to everyone that's come before. I just don't know how I feel about it. Like, he broke bad with this murder, which he doesn't really do in the show. Even though they kind of made Beck more innocent in the show, so that makes Joe's killing of her a little bit more morally ambiguous. But overall, Joe in the show is a much better person than Joe in this book. This Joe is very bad. Wow, a lot of stuff has gone down since I last checked in. I'm on page 404, I'm almost done, and wow, this has been a wild ride. But anyways, I just wanted to stop because I found this line that I really like. Memories are all the same at their core. It's just us trying to keep each other alive, the best parts anyway. I love that line. I just finished reading Hidden Bodies, and wow, this book is impressive and very interesting. I don't think that it has quite as much substance as the first book, You. I think that stylistically, You is a little bit more innovative, maybe because of the second person point of view and the way that it reflects a stalker's mindset, which I talk about a lot more in my video on View. But I do think there's a lot of really interesting commentary in this book about LA culture, LA life, what it's like to be trying to climb up the ranks of the film industry, and also maybe kind of like the classism that's present in LA. Yeah, and also maybe a little bit of the sort of sociopathic tendencies of some people in the film industry, or like the narcissism and selfishness, especially narcissism. I think there's a lot of commentary in this book about narcissism, which is kind of funny because Joe's a little bit of a narcissist himself, so it's kind of meta in that way. Or not meta, but it's just ironic. It's really ironic that Joe talks a lot about narcissism in here, and he is a narcissist. I think I'm gonna give it 5 out of 5 stars. Like, it's not quite as good as You. I wasn't as blown away. Again, I felt like stylistically You had something that was really special. And this book is written a lot like it, except that it's in first person point of view. And it does kind of have like the rambling sentences and run-on sentences that You had, but it just feels more effective in You than it does in here. But this was still really interesting. I was entertained the whole time. It has a lot of cliffhangers like You. I did feel like the first act was a little bit slow. The part where he's pretty much just going after Amy. Yeah, I kind of got a little bit bored by the time we got to Henderson. I was like, okay, I can see where this is going, and I'm just, yeah, I kind of got a little bit bored at that point. But for the most part, after he meets Love, I was just sucked into the story. I was like, oh my gosh, I have to see where this is going. I have to see how Joe's gonna screw this up. It was really interesting. So, and I was getting so tense because I didn't really like Joe with Beck, especially in the book. In the show, she's a little bit more, I can tolerate her a little bit better. But in the first book, in the book, oh my god, she's so annoying. But Love, I loved her in the show, and I loved her just as much in the book. So there's only like 1 or 2 times I got kind of frustrated with her. Mostly whenever she was like pulling away from Joe emotionally for no reason. There's a lot of reasons to pull away from Joe, but Love didn't know those reasons at the time. So yeah, so that was a little frustrating. But for the most part, I really liked Love a lot better than Beck, both in the book and the show. So I really enjoyed reading this. I think I might take a break for today. There's a lot. I feel like I read 2 books and because like the first half of this book is very different from the second half. It's almost like 2 completely different storylines. And although he does reference Amy a lot in the second half of the book, he's pretty much just completely changed his focus, which it is a little bit of a bait and switch because the book starts off with this kind of premise that he's going to track down Amy and that he's going to focus on that the whole time. But I think that it's kind of both realistic to real life and kind of romantic that he completely changes his primary goal as he meets Love and begins to fall in love. So again, it feels like 2 different books in the first and second half, but I really enjoyed the entire book. So yeah, definitely gonna give this 5 out of 5 stars. And I think that I'm just gonna stop reading for today because I'm really tired. I think so I'm about 57 pages in, and I'm really enjoying this book. I feel like Joe from Hidden Bodies, I didn't realize how kind of out of character he felt in that book. I still really loved that book, but I felt like because maybe he was so angry at Amy that it kind of changed his personality, and he was a lot more hostile and just less sympathetic than he is in this book and in You. It definitely feels more like Joe in this book, so I really like that. But at the same time, the pacing is so much slower than Hidden Bodies. Like, I feel like at this point in Hidden Bodies, Joe had already been broken up with, he'd already been robbed, he'd already moved to LA, and he was already hunting Amy. So like a lot had happened in the first 50 pages, whereas this book, it's like he's stalking Mary Kay. He's been stalking her for 50 pages. Nothing else has really happened. It's still interesting. Being in Joe's head is always interesting. I really just enjoy hearing his thoughts on even the most mundane things. He's such an interesting character. But like plot-wise, it's just, I just feel like we're not going anywhere. So I just finished chapter 11, and it just really occurred to me that there is one thing that's been kind of out of character with Joe, and that is the fact that he did kind of give up on Love and his son, like, really quickly compared to what I thought. Like, yeah, they did have, like, bodyguards, like, pull a gun on Joe, and threaten him. So I can kind of see why he would back off, but at the same time, like, it's Joe, you know, he can't help but obsess. So it's like, if he really loved Love, and I feel like based on Hidden Bodies, he really loved her, and he definitely still loves his son. Like, I feel like he would be doing a lot more than just stalking them on Instagram. So that's like the one thing that I feel is a little bit off about this book. It's just a little bit hard for me to believe that Joe, you know, obsessive stalker Joe, isn't trying to make a move to get back with Love. Or to at least make sure that she really is the one that's calling the shots, because he didn't talk to her or her parents directly. He just talked to like an intermediate. So he doesn't even know for sure that Love is aware. I mean, obviously she could probably track him down with her resources, but I just feel like he doesn't really even know what she's thinking or feeling because he hasn't spoken to her. And I just don't see Joe giving up on them that easily. So that's like the only thing that kind of bugs me. I feel like he's just obsessed about Mary Kay and moved on a little bit too quickly. So yeah, that's one thing I've noticed that I don't particularly think is in character with Joe for this book. But other than that, this book does really feel like we're back in Joe's head, whereas Hidden Bodies was like a very hostile, slightly out of character version of Joe, even though so far I think I liked Hidden Bodies more than this book. But yeah, that's just something interesting I noticed. Oh my god, so I just finished chapter 22 and I am so done with Mary Kay. She is like Beck times 100 when it comes to being attracted to toxic men. I cannot stand her anymore. I'm just so frustrated. I'm like, girl, you are as crazy as Joe in a different way. Like, she is the biggest enabler I've ever come across in fiction. She is so frustrating, and I feel like I've lost all respect for her, and I'm kind of losing respect for Joe, because it's like, stop obsessing about this woman. She clearly makes terrible decisions. You're not gonna win her over. Okay, I'm done. I just had to vent. Okay, so I'm like 200 pages into it and I love this new Joe. Oh my gosh. So like Joe, the thing about the Joe in this book is that he's kind of taken the same character arc that he did in the show, where he feels like he needs to be on his best behavior. He doesn't want to kill anyone anymore. He wants to be better. And also he's kind of scared of, you know, because law enforcement kind of already has his eye on him. The Quinns have their eye on him. Like, he has to behave and be good. So he doesn't want to kill anyone. So in order to try to break up this relationship, he's like broke into their house and he's doing all these like little random things to mess with them. Like, he poured all of Phil's almond milk down the drain. He unscrewed some of the screws from their dining room table. He's jacking up the thermostat. It's just so funny watching him like sneak into their house and pull all these pranks. It's like, it's just really funny. I kind of like this new Joe, this like prankster Joe almost. It's really interesting. So it's a very interesting character arc for him, and it's just really amusing for him to come in and mess with these characters, especially since I really don't like Phil or Mary Kay anymore. I'm so glad that Joe's like coming into their house and messing with them. I'm getting some vicarious enjoyment from this. Okay, so warning, there's like a slight spoiler for the Hannibal series I'm about to mention. So if you haven't read the Hannibal books, you might want to fast forward a few seconds. But yeah, on page 222, Joe, or Mary Kay, mentions that she always wanted Hannibal and Clarice to end up together, and then Joe agrees with her. But I'm like, in the book series, they do end up together, so it's just really weird to me that they're both book nerds. One of them has probably read the series. You know, it doesn't make sense that both of them haven't read it and don't know that they end up together. So that was just kind of weird. Like, it's weird that they're both acting like the movie version of events is like the only true version, and that neither of them mention that in the books they end up together. So that's kind of weird. I just thought that that was off, that neither of them would have read the books and known that. Ugh, this is kind of annoying, but this is something I'm annoyed with Joe about, not the author. Joe says, "I was right, this is an everything ship, not that we need a silly name for what we are." Like, that's just so disrespectful. I mean, yeah, I know him and Beck ended very badly, but like, that was you and Beck's thing. Like, why you gotta bring that up now? And just, I don't know, it's just so icky. I just feel icky about it. Like, I know Joe's done far worse things than recycle a word that he used in another relationship, but I just feel gross about it. I don't like him bringing up that word, especially since I liked him and Beck more than I like him and Mary Kay. But even so, even disregarding that, I just don't like him bringing up something that was between him and Beck and then using it for him and Mary Kay. Just, It's very not romantic. Oh my gosh, I'm on page 270 and I have never hated a character more than I hate Mary Kay. She is worse than an enabler. She has now been brainwashed by someone else, another character, and I'm just done with her. I'm so done with her. I'm done with her. I'm done with Joe for still being hung up on her. It's time for Joe to go after Love Quinn and his baby, which is what he should have been doing because Mary Kay is awful. I'm so frustrated with her. And the things that she's saying, even though she's just repeating what this guy who's brainwashed her has been telling her, are so awful. Like saying, I'm not obliged to listen to you because your feelings are not my responsibility. Like, that's such a toxic thing to say. Like, your feelings are not my concern, whenever she's been messing around with Joe and they've been having a relationship. That's just so callous and cruel, and I'm so done with her. And even outside of this book, I just hate that mentality of your feelings are not my responsibility. It's almost like you're saying, my actions don't have a consequence, or, you know, like, what you say matters. The way that you make other people feel matters. It is your responsibility. Not every hurt feeling is your fault, but a lot of times whenever someone is hurt by something that you say, it is partly your fault. And like, for her to just be so dismissive of Joe, just really, like, she's done a lot of things that have made me mad in this book, but this is the worst thing she's done so far. He just used #MeToo, like, not in the story, but like in his inner narrative, his inner monologue, but he used it so inappropriately. I'm just, that's it, Joe, you're canceled. Oh my gosh, so I just read chapter 42 and I did not expect that. I just, in my wildest dreams, would not have anticipated this particular turn of events, and I'm not entirely sure how I feel about it. I think I might need to like kind of ruminate on this turn of events a little bit more, but wow. So I'm on chapter 45 and what the heck? Like, there's already another turn of events that is just crazy. It's not totally out of left field like the last kind of unexpected turn of events, but this is still really crazy. But it's also kind of like an ironic twist that really works for me, like on a storytelling level, because it's just like the predator has become the prey. It's very karmic, and it feels kind of satisfying to see Joe in this situation, but very surprising. Did not see that coming. Okay, I'm on chapter 49 and I am so nervous because everything has been going so well for the past couple chapters. Like, oh yeah, I'm nervous. Like, there's still so much story left and there can only be time for something really bad to happen the last moment. So this is not something that I've experienced in a lot of stories, because usually it's like the stakes just keep getting higher and higher, especially in a thriller. The stakes just keep going up and the obstacles just keep getting worse until finally you hit that climax and then it's all smooth sailing. But like, this is different because we've already hit what kind of felt like the story's climax, and now like everything is just good, but it's like there's way too much room for the resolution, so I know something bad's gonna happen. I'm just really nervous. Everything's been going so good. I just know something terrible is about to happen. I don't know, people need to use this technique more often because it's very effective. I've been so stressed out this last chapter thinking something terrible is gonna happen at the end of this chapter, and then like the last chapter was just like all smooth sailing and happiness, and I'm like, oh, something bad's gonna happen in the next one. Yeah, it's been very intense. So I just finished You Love Me. I think I need time to process that ending. Oh my god. Okay, so I've had a few minutes to process, and this is just, wow. I did not see that last major shock coming, but it was foreshadowed so well. Like, looking back on it, I'm like, you know what, it's a believable turn of events, and I felt like it was foreshadowed sufficiently. There was one chapter where I went back and I was like, I'm gonna reread this chapter and I'm gonna find a mistake that shows that this is not a possibility. I can't say what it is without going into spoilers, but I'm like, there's definitely a mistake that was in this chapter. And if you read the book, you know which chapter, because you probably went back and read it yourself. And I reread it and I'm like, nope, this scene was written perfectly so that you could interpret it one way the first time you read it, and then the second time you read it, it means something totally different, and it works. That takes a lot of talent to be able to write a scene that works a different way the second time you read it. So, I mean, after you've read the whole book. You know, it's a really talented plot twist whenever it totally changes your interpretation of a whole scene. But man, that's just so crazy. Out of all the things that could have happened, I definitely did not anticipate this ending. I'm gonna need to like sit with this before I can tell how I feel about it. But I will say, no matter how I feel about it, that it was well done. Okay, so I've thought about this book a little bit more. I don't think I enjoyed it overall as much as I did You and Hidden Bodies, which is kind of sad because that means like every book in the series I'm enjoying it just a little bit less, but it's still really good. This is still one of the best books that I've read this year. It was a lot slower than both You and Hidden Bodies. It was more frustrating than I remember You being, because Beck was annoying, but Mary Kay was like Beck times 100 in terms of just how frustrating she was, how easily manipulated by the people around her that she was, how hot and cold she was with Joe. It was very frustrating. Whereas You had a bit of a predictable ending. I felt like You Love Me is just an ending that no one is gonna see coming. So there's that. So in my review on You, I mentioned that I thought You Love Me was about this being Mary Kay, this being referring to love, and then me referring to Joe. That's not the case. There's not like a love triangle in here, and I don't feel bad saying that even if you haven't read the book, because I feel like you'll probably enjoy it more if you go into it not expecting a love triangle like I did. So that was one more thing I was a little bit disappointed about. I really wanted Love to have a bigger part in this book. She's only in a couple of chapters. She's really a background character in this, and I really wanted her to be front and center because she is probably my favorite character in the series besides Joe. And I was just kind of disappointed, but I guess in order for this book to be as effective as it was, she did kind of need to be in the background, so I'm okay with it now. But as I was reading, I was a little bit disappointed she wasn't in it more. And I really hope that the show doesn't follow this book exactly, because like I said, they really push Love out of the story, and I really love her both in the book and the show, so I hope that the show does it a little bit differently. But yeah, that twist is just... that twist is amazing, and yeah, like I said, I think I'm gonna need a couple days to process how I feel about it, but it was well executed, and I'm very impressed. So thank you for coming along with me on my read-a-thon. My weekend with Joe Goldberg, basically. I'm gonna go do something wholesome after reading 2 books about this sociopath character. I'm gonna go watch something wholesome, maybe a Hallmark movie or something. I don't know, maybe go watch a puppy and kitty video. I need something pure and wholesome right now. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe. I post book reviews, writing advice, and horror commentary on this channel. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you later.